Lately, my wife, Angela, has been working late more and more often. I love her dearly, and it's this love that feeds my worry each night she's not home. As a senior project manager in an advertising firm, she's always had demanding periods at work, but this has become a troubling pattern over the past few months. Tonight, like many before, I find myself glancing at the clock, noting that it's past 10 p.m., a stark contrast to her usual return time, which used to be no later than 7 p.m. The house feels larger and more silent with each passing hour, each tick of the clock echoing in the empty spaces she used to fill. Concern gnaws at me, so I pick up my phone and dial her number. It rings once, twice, then, thankfully, she answers. "Hey, honey," Angela's voice is soft, tired. "Sorry, I can't really talk. We're swamped here, just trying to wrap up some client revisions. I'll be home late." I try to keep the worry out of my voice. "All right, love. Just wanted to check in and make sure you're okay. Need anything?" "No, I'm good. Thanks, babe. I'll see you later, okay? Love you." She hangs up quickly, almost abruptly. I sigh, placing the phone down, my mind racing. Something doesn't feel right. Angela has always been passionate about her job, yet this recent change in her routine, her increased distance, it gnaws at me. As much as I try to shake the feeling, the seed of doubt plants itself deeper within my thoughts. Unable to settle, I decide to distract myself with a book, but the words blur together, my thoughts incessantly returning to Angela. Every hour, as I've started doing lately, I call her again. Just to hear her voice, to confirm she's all right. By midnight, there's no sign of her, and worry morphs into frustration. I dial again, the phone ringing longer this time. Eventually, she picks up, her voice breathless. "Hey, sorry, can't talk, in a meeting," she's panting, as if she'd been running. I frown, puzzled and concerned. "Honey, why are you out of breath? Are you okay?" There's a pause, and I can hear muffled voices in the background. Angela seems to have thought she ended the call but hadn't. My heart sinks as I hear words that are not meant for my ears. "Come on, hurry up. I'm almost done." "You're amazing." The voice is unmistakably Angela's, but it's not her usual tone. There's a passion, a fervor that hasn't been directed at me in months. A coldness washes over me, the kind that seeps deep into your bones. Rage follows, quick and hot, a burning in my veins I can hardly contain. I listen, frozen, as the voices continue, oblivious to my presence on the line. It's in this moment, heart shattered, mind racing, that I decide no more. Angela's deception is clear, her actions undeniable. Hurt transforms into resolve as I begin to formulate a plan. Revenge seems a path I'd never thought I'd walk, but now it calls to me, a siren song in the dark night. I hang up before hearing more than I can bear. The night stretches out before me, long and painful, yet filled with a new purpose. This is just the beginning, I realize. Angela's late nights are about to lead to a reckoning she never anticipated. As I sit in the dark, waiting for her return, the pieces of my plan begin to fall into place. Whatever happens next, one thing is clear, nothing will ever be the same again. It's nearly 2 a.m. when Angela finally comes home. The sound of the front door creaking open breaks the stifling silence of our house. I sit in the living room, lights dimmed, an untouched glass of whiskey on the coffee table. I've rehearsed what to say 100 times, yet as she walks in, weary yet unsuspecting, words elude me. "Hey, you're up late," she says, a tinge of surprise in her voice as she sets down her bag and keys. "Everything okay?" I nod, gesturing for her to sit. "We need to talk, Angela." Her brows knit together, confusion quickly morphing into concern. "What's wrong? Is it your mom? Did something happen?" "It's about us," I say firmly, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "About your late nights." Angela pauses, then sits across from me, her posture defensive. "Look, I know I've been working a lot. It's just this big project, Anne." "I heard you tonight," I interrupt, cutting off her rehearsed excuses. On the phone. You didn't hang up. The color drains from her face. For a long moment, she's silent, her eyes darting away from mine. Then, she sighs, a resigned, weary sound. I don't know what to say. Don't. Just listen, I say, leaning forward. I've been supportive, understanding. But what I heard tonight? Who is he, Angela? Her eyes fill with tears, her voice a whisper. Tom, he's just someone from work. It didn't mean anything. That's not enough, Angela. My voice is cold, harder than I intend. I want details. Everything. She wipes her eyes, nodding slowly. I'll tell you everything, but please know I never meant to hurt you. As Angela recounts her tale of late nights turned into clandestine meetings with Tom, her colleague from marketing, the pieces of my heart continue to splinter. But buried beneath the betrayal, a plan forms. Angela is still valuable in her firm, and her affair, if exposed, could ruin her. The next morning, I head to Angela's office under the guise of a surprise lunch date. There, I seek out Tom, a tall, charismatic man who matches the voice I overheard. We talk briefly about mundane work topics before I subtly shift the conversation. Angela speaks highly of you, I say, watching his reaction closely. Tom stiffens slightly, his smile faltering. Oh, yeah? She's great. A real asset to the team. I imagine so, I press on, my tone casual but probing. Working closely can create special bonds, right? Tom's discomfort is palpable. He mumbles something about a meeting and excuses himself. As he walks away, another plan forms, one that might just involve Tom directly. Back home, I make a few phone calls to mutual friends who were more mine than Angela's. I confide in James and Lisa, trusted friends who react with anger and immediate support. Whatever you need, we're here, James assures me over the phone, his voice firm. Let's meet tomorrow, Lisa adds, we can think this through properly, make sure Angela and that guy don't just get away with it. With allies by my side and a burgeoning plan, the next steps begin to take shape. Angela's deception won't just end with heartbreak, it will ripple through her life, leaving her to face the consequences she never anticipated. As night falls, I sit alone, plotting, the silence now a companion in my scheme. Whatever happens next, I am not alone, and for the first time in weeks, a grim sense of purpose settles within me. The next day, under the guise of a gloomy sky, I meet with James and Lisa at a secluded cafe, a place where the chances of being overheard are slim. They're already there when I arrive, their expressions grim and supportive. As I sit down, Lisa reaches over, giving my hand a brief, reassuring squeeze. How are you holding up? I shrug, a tight smile playing on my lips. Ready to make things right, I reply, my voice tinged with a resolve that surprises even me. James nods, pulling out a notepad. We've been thinking about this since you called. There's a way to handle this discreetly but effectively. I lean forward, eager to hear their thoughts. Go on. Lisa takes over, her tone businesslike. Angela's career is her Achilles heel. If her affair impacts her professional reputation, it will hurt her more than just confronting her personally. And Tom? I ask, my fists clenching at the mention of his name. We have a few options, James interjects. If he's as ambitious as you say, threatening his position at the company could leverage him to our advantage. Their plan is meticulous and sharp, each step carefully thought out to inflict maximum impact with minimal backlash. I find myself both horrified and relieved at the depth of their loyalty and strategic thinking. Step 1, Lisa begins, outlining the strategy. We gather evidence. You said you heard them. Do you think you could record a conversation? I nod. I think so. She still takes late calls at home sometimes, probably thinking I'm not paying attention. Good, says James, get anything that proves the affair. Meanwhile, Lisa and I can start spreading subtle rumors through our network. Nothing blatant, just hints to get people watching closer. Step 2, Lisa continues. Once we have enough evidence, we anonymously tip off someone at their office. Maybe someone in HR. It's risky, but it could trigger an internal investigation. The plan feels like something out of a thriller movie, yet here we are, plotting like seasoned conspirators. And Tom? I press, needing to know how he fits into this house of cards. James grins, a sharp, cold thing. Tom gets a visit from me. A friendly warning about the dangers of workplace entanglements. If he thinks his career is at risk, he might end things on his own, which could destabilize Angela even more. I sit back, absorbing the depth of their plan. It's calculated, potentially devastating, but a part of me balks at the severity. Yet, another, darker part feels a vindictive satisfaction. We agree to start immediately. The next few days are a blur of activity. I manage to record a damning conversation between Angela and Tom, his voice clear as he plans another clandestine meeting. True to their word, James and Lisa begin their subtle campaign. Rumors start to circulate, not loudly, but just enough to spark curiosity among Angela's colleagues. The turning point comes one evening when James confronts Tom. I'm not there, but James recounts it later. I told him he was playing with fire, James tells me, his voice grim. He didn't admit anything outright, but he was shaken. I think he'll crack. That night, lying in bed, I await Angela's return, the recorder with Tom's voice hidden in my drawer. As the door opens and she steps in, weary from another late night, I know the endgame is upon us. Angela, I begin, my voice steady despite the tempest inside. We need to talk. It's time everything came out into the open. She stops, her face pale, her eyes wary. As she sits, I can see the strain of the past weeks etched deeply into her features. The confrontation is upon us, and with it, the unraveling of a life we once shared. The plans, now set in motion, cannot be undone. The living room feels colder than usual as Angela sits across from me, her posture rigid, her eyes not quite meeting mine. I clasp my hands to steady them, the recorder just within reach. Angela, I begin, my voice firmer than I know about Tom. And I know it's not just late nights at work. Her face crumples slightly, a mix of resignation and fear. I don't know what to say. There's nothing to say that can undo what's been done. I press play on the recorder. Tom's voice fills the room, discussing their next secret rendezvous. Angela's face goes pale, her eyes widening in shock. How long? I ask, needing to hear it from her. 6 months, she whispers. I'm so sorry, I never wanted. Save it, I cut her off, anger flaring briefly. It's done. I've already set things in motion that can't be stopped. What do you mean? Panic tinges her voice, her eyes now locked on mine, searching for something, perhaps an inkling of the old warmth, the old us. I've exposed you both, I say quietly. To your company, to our friends. You won't just walk away from this unscathed. Angela shakes her head, tears streaming down her face. Why? Why couldn't you just confront me? Because you needed to feel a fraction of what I felt, I reply coldly. But even as I say it, a hollow feeling starts to form inside me. We sit in silence, the gravity of everything pulling us down. Then, there's a knock at the door. Puzzled, I rise to answer it, my mind racing, who could it be at this hour? I open the door to find Tom standing there, his appearance disheveled, his eyes wild with an emotion I can't quite place. I need to speak with Angela, he says, pushing past me without waiting for an invitation. Tom? Angela stands up, wiping her tears, a confused look on her face. I left my wife, Tom blurts out, his voice desperate. I told her everything, and I left her for us, Angela. Angela stares at him, stunned. Tom, I didn't think. You what? Didn't think I was serious? Tom's desperation turns to anger. I gave up everything. Stop. I interject, my voice booming louder than I intend. You think you can just barge in here and decide how things go? Tom turns to me, his anger palpable. This isn't about you. Before I can respond, another knock sounds. This time, more forceful, more authoritative. I open the door again to find 2 police officers. Mr. and Mrs. last name, one officer begins. We received a call about a domestic disturbance. Is everything all right here? As I glance back at the chaos behind me, Angela sobbing quietly, Tom visibly shaking, I realize the full impact of my actions. No, officer, things are not all right, I say. But we'll handle it. There's no need for police involvement. They nod, but before leaving, one officer pulls me aside. Sir, sometimes it's better to solve things before they escalate to something you can't handle. Just some advice. As the door closes behind them, I turn to face the wreckage of my decisions. Angela, looking lost and broken, Tom, a man who gambled everything on a losing bet, and myself, the orchestrator of this chaos, feeling less victorious and more hollow than ever. I'll leave the company, Angela speaks up suddenly, her voice breaking. I'll resign tomorrow. And Tom, this isn't what I want. Tom looks at her, then at me, and without a word, he leaves, his shoulders hunched, his steps heavy. With the room now quiet, Angela and I sit back down, the distance between us more than just physical. I'm sorry for everything, she says softly. I wish we could go back. So do I admit, the anger subsiding, replaced by a profound sadness. But we can't. In that moment, I realized that revenge didn't bring relief, it only brought more pain. And as I sit there, watching Angela gather her things to leave, I understand the officer's words. Some things, once broken, are beyond repair, and the cost of vengeance is often your own peace. As the door closes behind her, I sit alone, the silence a stark contrast to the storm that just passed. The game of revenge was over, and in its wake, left only remnants of a life we once thought would last forever.